I used to believe that love could survive anything, distance, ambition, even time. Chike and I were proof of that once. We met when we were barely teenagers in Enugu, two dreamers who thought the world would bend to our will. He was gentle, steady, the kind of boy who made promises and kept them. I was the girl who wanted more than the world around her could offer. We grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same church, and shared the same dreams of escaping the smallness of our world. Chike wanted to build things, bridges, roads, homes. I wanted to build a life that would make my parents proud, one that would make people remember my name. We used to sit under the mango tree behind my father's house, talking about the future. He would sketch buildings in the sand, and I would tell him about the cities I wanted to see. When I left for university abroad, Chike stayed behind. He couldn't afford to go, and I had earned a scholarship. We promised to wait for each other. We wrote letters, long ones filled with dreams and longing. He would tell me about his classes, his plans, his mother's cooking. I would tell him about the cold winters, the strange food, the loneliness that came with chasing something bigger than home. When I came back, he was waiting at the airport, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite. He looked at me like I was still the same girl he had loved all those years. We married a year later, in a small church surrounded by family and friends who said we were meant to be. And for a while, it felt true. Our first apartment in Lagos was small but full of laughter. We had nothing but each other and a shared belief that our love would carry us through anything. I got a job at a multinational firm as a junior analyst. Chike started his own construction company with two friends. We were both hungry for success, both determined to make something of ourselves. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. My career took off faster than I ever imagined. I worked late nights, traveled often, and climbed the corporate ladder with a speed that surprised even me. Each promotion felt like validation, proof that I was doing something right. I became the youngest executive director at my firm, the kind of woman people pointed to and said, "She made it." Chike's story was different. His company struggled. Contracts slipped away, clients disappeared, and the city that had embraced me seemed to turn its back on him. He was talented, but talent wasn't enough. He didn't have the connections, the network, the ruthlessness that Lagos demanded. I told myself to be patient, to be supportive, but somewhere deep down, resentment began to grow. I hated that I felt it, but I did. I hated coming home to silence, to a man who looked at me like I was slipping away. I hated the way he avoided my eyes when I talked about work, the way he smiled too tightly when people congratulated me. I started to feel like I was carrying both of us, like his failures were weights tied to my ankles. Then came Tond. I met him at a corporate dinner, one of those glittering events where everyone smiles too much and drinks too little. He was charming, confident, and he saw me. Not the executive, not the success story, me. We talked about everything: business, art, the loneliness of ambition. He listened in a way Chike hadn't in years. It started innocently: lunches, phone calls, messages that stretched into the night. But innocence has a way of fading quietly. One evening, when the city lights blurred through the car window, I crossed a line I can never uncross. After that, I lived two lives. By day, I was Adaora Nwosu, the woman who had it all. By night, I was someone else, someone who felt alive again, desired again. But guilt is a patient shadow. It followed me everywhere, whispering that I was losing more than I was gaining. Jack knew. He never said it outright, but he knew. The way he looked at me changed, less anger, more sadness. One night, after another argument about money and time, he asked, "When did we stop being on the same side?" I had no answer. Maybe it was the day I stopped believing that love was enough. Months passed. Ton became a constant presence in my life. He made me laugh, made me feel powerful, made me forget the emptiness waiting at home. But even with him, there was a hollowness I couldn't escape. He was a mirror reflecting my ambition, not my heart. Then one day, Chai got his big break, a major government contract that changed everything. I watched him celebrate, his eyes bright with the pride I used to feel for him. But by then, something inside me had already broken. I smiled, but it felt like a lie. He started to rebuild himself, piece by piece. He hired staff, bought new equipment, and for the first time in years, he looked alive again. I should have been happy for him, but instead, I felt small. I had spent so long being the strong one, the successful one, that I didn't know how to exist beside a man who no longer needed saving. The distance between us grew wider. We slept in the same bed but lived in different worlds. He would come home late, smelling of dust and sweat, and I would be sitting in the living room, scrolling through emails, pretending not to notice. Sometimes, I caught him looking at me like he wanted to say something, but the words never came. One night, I came home to find him sitting in the dark. He didn't look angry, just tired. He said, "Adaora, I know." My heart stopped. He didn't raise his voice, didn't accuse me. He just said it like a fact, like something he had accepted long ago. I tried to speak, to explain, but there was nothing left to say. He stood up, walked past me, and went to bed. That silence was louder than any argument we had ever had. After that night, we became strangers. We still lived together, still played our roles, but the love that once held us together had turned into something brittle. I ended things with Ton, thinking it would fix what was broken, but it didn't. The damage was already done. Months later, Chak moved out. He said he needed space, needed to find himself again. I didn't stop him. I watched him pack his things, watched him drive away, and for the first time in years, I cried. Not because he was leaving, but because I finally understood what I had lost. People look at me and see success. They see the cars, the house, the title. They don't see the cracks, the loneliness that comes with winning alone. I thought gold was the reward for all my sacrifices, but now I know it's also a mirror. It reflects everything, even the emptiness. Sometimes, I drive past the old mango tree where we used to sit and dream. The tree is still there, its branches heavy with fruit. I wonder if Chuck ever passes by too. I wonder if he remembers the girl who believed love could survive anything. I built my life out of glass and ambition. It shines beautifully from the outside. But inside, it's so very fragile. And every time I look at my reflection, I see the woman who had everything except the one thing that truly mattered. For months after Chuck left, I lived in silence. The house felt too big, too empty. Every sound echoed, my footsteps, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft buzz of my phone that never seemed to ring anymore. I buried myself in work, in meetings, in deadlines. I told myself I was fine, that I didn't need anyone. But every night, when I came home to the quiet, I felt the truth pressing against my chest. I missed him. Not the man he became at the end, but the boy who used to walk me home from school, who believed in me before I believed in myself. I miss the way he used to laugh, the way he used to hold my hand like it was something sacred. I miss the version of us that existed before success and failure built walls between us. Sometimes, I thought about calling him. I even picked up the phone once or twice, but what would I say? I'm sorry. Come back. The words felt too small for the damage we had done. So I stayed silent, hoping time would somehow heal what pride had broken. Then one afternoon, months later, he called. His voice was calm, polite, distant. He asked if we could meet. I agreed, though my heart raced the entire day. We met at a quiet cafe in Victoria Island. He looked different, stronger, more grounded. There was a peace about him that I hadn't seen in years. I smiled, trying to hide the tremor in my hands. How have you been? I asked. Good, he said simply. Work's been going well. I nodded, waiting for him to say more. Then he took a deep breath and looked at me with eyes that were both kind and final. Adaora, he said softly, I think it's time we made things official. I want a divorce. The words hit me like a wave. I had known this moment would come, but knowing didn't make it easier. My throat tightened. A divorce. I repeated, as if saying it aloud would make it less real. He nodded. I've met someone. For a moment, the world went still. The clinking of cups, the low murmur of voices, all of it faded. I stared at him, searching his face for hesitation, for guilt, for anything that might tell me he wasn't serious. But there was only calm acceptance. She's pregnant, he continued quietly. We didn't plan it, but it happened. And I want to do right by her. I felt something inside me crack. Not anger, not jealousy, just a deep, hollow ache. I wanted to speak, to scream, to ask him how he could move on so easily when I was still standing in the ruins of what we had built. But I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, Do you love her? He hesitated, then nodded. Yes. I do. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had once worn his ring, the same hands that had built a life around him. They trembled slightly. "I see," I said, though I didn't. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. "Adaora, I don't hate you. I never did. What happened between us, it broke both of us. But I've found peace now. I hope you can too." I pulled my hand back gently. "Peace," I repeated, the word tasting strange on my tongue. We sat in silence for a long time. Then he stood, thanked me for meeting him, and walked away. I watched him go, his figure fading into the crowd, and for the first time, I realized he wasn't coming back, not this time. That night, I went home and sat in the dark, just like he once did. I thought about the years we had shared, the dreams we had built, the love we had lost. I thought about the woman carrying his child, about the life he was about to start anew. And then I thought about myself. For so long, I had defined my worth by what I achieved, by the titles, the money, the applause. But none of it could fill the emptiness that came from losing the one person who had loved me before I became anyone at all. The divorce papers came a few weeks later. I signed them without hesitation. There was no point in holding on to something that no longer existed. Afterward, I took a long drive to Enugu. I visited my parents' old house, the mango tree still standing tall behind it. I sat beneath it for hours, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to cry, not out of regret, but out of release. Chike had found his peace. Now, it was my turn to find mine. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day, I'll love again. Maybe I won't. But I've learned that success means nothing if it costs the soul its softness. I built my life out of gold and glass. It shines beautifully from the outside. But now, I'm learning to build again, this time, not for the world to see, but for myself. And maybe, just maybe, that's what truly matters. Thank you for listening until this far. This story truly teaches us to appreciate what we have before it's too late. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and let us know in the comment section what you thought of it.